Good morning, and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Tuesday, October 7th, 2025, and on Tuesdays we talk about music and the arts, and we're talking about tribalism these days, or this week at least, and so I wanted to talk about music that somehow touches on that theme directly or indirectly, or they deal with, themes of unity, that sort of thing. And indeed, there's a great deal of, a great many songs that have been inspired by messages of universal hope and love for humanity as a whole, etc. And I remember hearing these songs and listening to them really since I was a child. And what you hear when you're a child, of course, becomes the soundtrack of your life. I mean, it becomes your basic language. And so, for better or worse, the language that I was learning through music as a child was definitely directly influenced by popular music of the day, the protest songs, the songs about peace on earth and this sort of thing, right? And I remember, in my formative years, not only, of course, listening to the music, but, going to school and going to church. I was raised as a Catholic, going to Sunday school, and all these different themes that emerged in those different experiences, right? And I was trying to understand how to make sense out of what was happening in the world around us at the time. Again, I'm a child of the 1960s. I grew up in the 60s and the early 70s, grew into adulthood, of course. But the stuff that I was seeing and witnessing around me didn't make a great deal of sense. And I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow. But let me just say here that in a nutshell, what I was being taught and what I was learning in school didn't seem to square entirely with what I was observing, even as a child. Now, I had no great sophistication or understanding of, geopolitics or world affairs, etc. But it just struck me as odd that there were so many problems, and I would see on the news and hear on the radio and read in the newspapers about all of these different problems, and it was troubling, to say the least. And what I came to learn eventually, more than anything else, was that there's a great deal of tribalism that exists on our planet, and people, would swear their allegiances to their own kind, to their people, ethnically, and even more grandly to the twin pillars of God and country, for example. And that's still a very prominent theme today. And then I learned eventually, by the way, that most people learn the same things about their own gods and their own countries and so on. And so even as a youngster, that struck me as something of a rather limiting vision. So I couldn't understand, why some people were more worthy than others, or that God loved some peoples more than others, or that some were more deserving of the earth's bounties than others, and so on. Anyway, so I made this my lifelong vocation to study this stuff as a social scientist. But in music, that meant I also tended to gravitate towards more universalistic and, if you will, post-tribalism themes. And yet I often felt alone, sometimes even estranged in that regard. Certainly my father, my older brothers in particular, they definitely were not into the songs of universal love and acceptance and world peace and so on. In fact, they often ridiculed that type of music. And so I just learned to listen to this music on my own. I didn't worry about other people's approval. I didn't understand, quite frankly, some of their views about humanity, some of their cynicism and narrow-mindedness and so on. It just didn't make sense, at least not until many years later. And so what I want to share with you today is just briefly some of my favorite songs, not really a top 10, we'll call it a top 10, just simply, that are meant to, basically they're songs that are meant to transcend tribalism. They include certainly songs that as I said, I mentioned, I listened to as a child. I tried to understand the connections between the music that I was listening to and the world events that were, happening all around me. And so I'm going to start with my own kind of personal bias. So at number 10, I'm going to mention my own song, Beauty, Truth, and Light. And it's one of those songs that, again, speaks to, well, more than perhaps any other song that I've written, to the universal themes that I often highlight with respect to, beauty, truth, and light, literally in the title. And it's a song that speaks to this kind of universal message and common understanding that we're all, we all have the potential to be exposed to and to try to understand and accept. But again, for various reasons, we don't always do that, right? So anyway, and the other thing is, it's just one of those songs that almost fell out of me entirely in one evening, and that rarely happens. I was so excited, I couldn't stop working until I finished it, and I came back later. Of course, I listened to it again. Did I get this right? And of course, you always tweak things. I changed a few things, a few lyrics, and so on. But the whole song was basically done in one evening. And that almost never happens to me or to most songwriters that I know or have ever read about. So when lightning strikes, you have to take advantage. So the last verse, I'll leave links to all of the songs in the description below. And if you haven't listened, please give it a listen and a thumbs up, ideally. But the last verse, I sing, stand up, we sing a beauty's glow. Speak loud and clear the truths we know. Live by the light and love will grow. The wisdom unites our souls with beauty and truth that the light extols. Okay, and then at number 9, I'm going to move quickly on to Wavin' Flag. This is by some of you know the song, especially up here in Canada. It's by the Somali-Canadian artist Kanan from back in 2009. The original song itself climbed to number 2 on the Canadian Hot 100. And the verse, of course, always inspires if you haven't heard the song. But when you do hear it, it becomes so obvious. You know, when I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So, and I had to be a little bit careful with that imagery here, the symbolism involved there, right? Because I'm trying to talk about kind of post-tribalism and post-nationalism and so on. But it's supposed to be about the peoples being liberated from Somalia, at least originally. However, then the massive earthquake hit Haiti in 2010, the following year. And so then this kind of super group of Canadian artists got together and they re-recorded the song, same song, Wavin' Flag, and it's by then the Young Artist for Haiti, as they called themselves. And that song actually went to number 1. But out of respect for Kanan and the original work, that's the link I've included below as well. So, but check it out and check out the Young Artist version too if you haven't heard that. Really quite inspirational, I think. Okay, and then at number 8, I'm going to go back to my childhood. And as a tiny child, and I don't think I would have heard this live at the time. I would have been too young. I was old enough, but it was back in 1965. But I certainly seen it, since. And I don't know when I first heard it. I don't remember first hearing it. But it's listening to Joan Baez sing "We Shall Overcome." So the specific version that I've linked to below is from the 1965 performance on BBC Television Theatre. And she has just an amazing and powerful voice. And yet she's such a gentle spirit at the same time. So have a listen online if you haven't heard this performance previously. Again, check out the link below. At number 7 is another classic song from my childhood, Imagine by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, really. She was part of the inspiration with the words and so on. And it's the first song that I ever learned how to play on piano. It's literally the first song I fully learned how to play and committed to memory and so on piano. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. So the classic expression of idealism in that, captured by the one word imagine and then elaborated upon throughout the verses and the chorus. And as so often happens, by the way, you kind of have to separate the artist from the art, if you will, right? But the message of universal peace and harmony are unmistakable, unequivocal in my view. And I know people, including, even in my own family, who kind of hate that message, and that's our greatest challenge, I think, in this world, having to learn to live with and manage and cope in a world where there are so many people who are filled with such deep hatreds of others and certain kinds and so on. So it's quite the challenge, to say the least. And then that gets me to number 6 on my list here, the Black Eyed Peas, Where is the Love? Okay. Man, this one hit so hard when I first heard it back in the day. I was driving, literally, I can remember this. I don't remember all the details, but I think I might have actually pulled over at least after hearing the song. Maybe not, but I distinctly remember driving and hearing this song come on the radio, and I was blown away. I was listening to it. I was listening to the groove and the rapping and the lyrics, and the details and what they were saying. And then I learned later it was Justin Timberlake also singing on the chorus, that high pitched addition, and actually a couple of other people as well. But the Black Eyed Peas, different artists take lead vocals at different points throughout the song. Anyway, but just a remarkable song, both rhythmically, melodically, and well, not both, and lyrically as well. So yeah, I love that song. To this day, I still love that song. I don't hear it that often anymore, but if it comes on, I'm not going to turn it off. And yeah, and if I love this line. I mean, I love many of the lines, but if you never know truth, then you never know love. Where's the love, y'all? So, all right. And then at number 5, I'm going to go with a lesser known, perhaps, song by Ben Harper, with my own two hands. Sorry. This comes from his 2003 release, Diamonds on the Inside. And it's not the only reggae-inspired song on my list, to be sure, but definitely worth a listen because of the vibe, because of the lyrics, and the power that he expresses, but that the power that each of us has, if you will, to change the world. Okay, it was a song that was actually played a lot more in Europe, but I stumbled upon it years ago listening to good old CBC radio up here in Canada. So yeah, check it out if you haven't heard this one previously. I'll leave the link as well. And then at number 4, and speaking of changing the world, the female side of this equation, if you will, comes from Jewel. And her lovely song, simply titled Hands. So a lot of you probably know this one. It's another one. I first heard it on the radio, and I immediately went, wow. And I think I maybe didn't necessarily drive right to the record store or the CD store at the time, but I ended up buying the CD directly, or after hearing that song on the radio. I said, I don't care what else is on it. I'm just getting the CD, right? This is in the late 90s. And she opens this song with, and these lyrics that still give me chills when I hear it come on. If I could tell the world just one thing, it would be that we're all okay. And not to worry, because worry is wasteful and useless in times like these. I won't be made useless. I won't be idle with despair. I will gather myself around my faith, for light is the darkness most fear. My hand, then, the chorus, my hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. And then she sings this achingly beautiful line towards the end of the song. And in the end, only kindness matters. In the end, only kindness matters. And the Beatles sang, and in the end, the love you make is equal. The love you take is equal to the love you make. Sorry, I screwed that up. Anyway, all right. And so then we get to my my top 3, just for today at least. And so I'm slotting in "Keep Changing the World" by Mikeschair. It's a Christian rock group that came out. This song came out in 2010, and they open with the verses: "Something here is wrong. There are children without homes, but we just move along to take care of our own. There's so much suffering just outside our door, a cry so deafening we just can't ignore." And goes on from there, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I was learning in Sunday school, and that's been resonating in my little mind, all of my life. So much so that I even dropped out of university my first time that I attended when I was an 18-year-old, because I got involved with something called the Hunger Project. And the idea was to end this is in 1980, and the idea was to end world hunger by the year 2000. So I wanted to help solve that problem. I said, what am I doing here in university? I got to get out there and solve the hunger problem. So, and I remember thinking, all the literature, what I was reading about and so forth, well, how could it be that we would produce twice as much food, to feed the world, or we could feed the world twice over, and yet we had millions upon tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of people who were starving at the same time? That just, again, it didn't make sense to me. It was kind of like Sting's later song, King of Pain, where he would sing, there's a king on his throne with his eyes torn out. There's a blind man looking for a shadow of doubt. There's a rich man sleeping on a golden bed. There's a skeleton choking on a crust of bread. And then I guess the other version, or the other early version, if you will, of this song, kind of the precursor to a song like Keep Changing the World, would be We Are the World, right? By Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, and then that whole cast of superstars who got together to make that single back in 1985. So I guess that could be slotted in there as well. So Keep Changing the World by Mikeschair, We Are the World by Michael Jackson et al. They all fit in. They're all dealing with the same theme, right? Okay, and then I want to get to a couple of other songs. One not as well known, one quite well known, but they're going to end up. They're my top two today, at least on this list. So the one of the songs is called number two is called "One Day" by Matisyahu. Okay, it's another kind of reggae fusion type of song. And it's just a remarkable anthem in the form, if you will, of a prayer to end violence everywhere and forever. It's incredible to me how many people sort of put off this notion of of ending violence or achieving world peace, or they kind of defer the peace and bliss to the world hereafter. Oh well, whatever, however messed up this world is, wait till what comes next, right? And so that's meant to be a hopeful sort of thing. Yet, from my understanding and from all of the sacred teachings, that's our job right now. I mean, again, whatever comes next, great, but and so in Matisyahu sings, in the song, sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me too soon because I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, and so on. Just a really powerful message, and I love the beat in the song, and I love the way the richness and the textures as they get into that one day, and it's repeated and so on. So really, really powerful. And then finally at number one, my number one, at least on this list is actually called One Love by Bob Marley and the Wailers. So the theme song, it was the theme song, I should say, at our wedding almost 20 years ago. And it's such a deeply spiritual song, tying together, again, all of humanity under God and all of creation and so on, right? So again, it starts by singing, one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. Hear the children crying, one love. Hear the children crying, one heart. Saying, give thanks and praise to the Lord and I will feel all right. Saying, let's get together and feel all right. Whoa, 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 whoa. And then later he sings, as it was in the beginning, one love. So shall it be in the end, one heart. All right, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel all right. Let's get together and feel all right. And then he adds these other little flourishes, these other little touches. Again, it's a great reggae song, the reggae beat and so on. But he sings at the end, you kind of almost hear this in the background, I'm pleading to mankind, one love, one heart, let's get together. So yeah, great stuff. So many songs deal with these themes, these post-tribalism themes. And that's what we're talking about this week, tribalism. And much more to say about it tomorrow. So I'm going to talk about tribalism in relation to emotional health and well-being and relationships. So we'll do a deeper dive into that tomorrow. So in the meantime, as ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. Peace.